Bună ziua, stimați telespectatori DCNews TV, stimați cititori DCNews, un oaspete cu totul și cu totul special astăzi, așa cum ați văzut din promo făcut de noi. Până acum este vorba despre fostul președinte al Armeniei, domnul Armen Sarkissian. Perioada în care a fost președinte a fost de curând 2018-2022, fost premier, fost ministru, profesor invitat la marile universități ale lumii, inclusiv Cambridge și Harvard. De altfel, biografia impresionantă a domnului președinte este disponibilă pe site-ul nostru. Dați-mi voie să-l salut înainte de orice. Good morning, Mr. President.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for giving us this interview for both DCNews TV and DCNews. We are honored to have you in our studio via Skype from London in this moment.
Well, thank you for the invitation. In fact, it's my honor to speak via you also, not only to you, but via you also to people of Romania. I have great respect for Romanians for many, many years. In fact, from when I was young and I know the history of my own nation, I know how many Armenians lived and prospered in Romania for hundreds of years. And when I was in diplomatic work, I visited Romania many times to support the diplomatic relations because I was in charge of our diplomacy in Europe. And I met your presidents, prime ministers, some of them were good friends. And I love the culture. And of course, Romania is so wide and so complex and so interesting in many ways.
You mentioned... Yes, please.
Starting from a unique, beautiful city and especially the center of Bucharest and up to the intrigue that any young man has when speaks about Dracula and would like to see the famous castle. And to think about the real person that was standing behind the legend, I think the story, I think the real prince who was so talented and that had the courage of also leading his people. So fascinating country, wonderful people. So I would love to come back one day.
We wait for you. Romania is rich with the Armenian minority in our country, in Romania. We are honored and we have important personalities, Armenian personalities, in the artistic field, in healthcare. Professor Gemijan, it's very important in Romania. He used to make the surgery for one of our former presidents, but also politicians like Varujan Vosganian and Varujan Pambuccian, who is even now a deputy in the parliament. You had also, Armenia had a very good ambassador in Romania, Mr. Serghei Minasian, who did a lot for making the two countries to shake hands more than anything else.
Well, indeed, I think I know Serghei quite well because Serghei used to work with me as well when I became prime minister in 1996. Intelligent and well-educated, very nice person. I do, of course, remember him more as a very intelligent, high-quality ambassador of Armenia, but a young man. And I'm happy that he did very well in Romania. But I also had other friends that were there, and I do remember also Ambassador Karine Kazinian, who was ambassador to Romania, I think very successful, very energetic. Unfortunately, she has died years ago. And her husband, Mr. Kazinian, who was, I think, one of the first ambassadors of Armenia to Romania. So in any case, I think these are relations between our nations were always brotherly, and I would be happy to, if in the future, can contribute into the friendship between two nations. And of course, I know Varujans, and I know them quite well. And I've met them several times.
You know very well. It's impressive how well you know things in Romania. But the purpose of this interview is the book you wrote, The Small States Club, which is a bestseller now on the major networks of selling books in this world. And as a matter of fact, you give ideas for small states, such as Romania or Armenia, in this very complicated world, extremely complicated, the most complicated from the World War II we are living now. How do you see, to start to present this book, which is full of ideas? I strongly recommend it to our politicians as well. How do you assess, sir, the world situation right now? Shall we be worried? Because now we are, there are important voices like Minister of Defense from different countries, including Germany, which say we might expect in 2025 a war between NATO and Russia. And also, how do you see the war in Israel-Hamas and the possibility of having another war between North and South Korea? Let's not speak now, or if you want, we can speak about a possible conflict also in Taiwan. So it's a lot of fire all over the world. And where are the small states in this situation?
Yes, I think it's, I'll try. I'll try to explain to you. First of all, why I wrote this book. In fact, this is my first book that is recently published on political science, because I have others in mathematics and physics and astronomy. But as a book, it was not the first one that I wrote. For years, I was thinking about the changes on our planet. As a scientist, I am more interested in principles, the fundamental reasons of the changes and where this world is moving, rather than individual events that are, in many cases, they are representing not the core reason, but our reflection of what is happening big. And what is happening big worldwide, I would say it's very important to understand that the world is going through huge dramatic changes. And these changes started not this year or they didn't start 10 years ago. In fact, the whole process started with scientific revolution that has happened more than 100 years ago. I'm speaking about the discovery of quantum physics. Quantum physics is the physics about small particles. Basically, until the beginning of the 20th century, the world was living from scientific point of view, in a complete harmony, because Isaac Newton's and other giants of physics, their discoveries, were explaining everything that was happening around us. It's only the beginning of the 20th century that we started registering or observing the elementary particles, atom, and finding that the theory of classical mechanics doesn't work. And that was a huge tragedy. As you were asking your questions, that we're living in a complex world, it's not predictable, and it's difficult to know what's going to happen tomorrow, another conflict here, another conflict there, and you cannot explain why these are happening. Is there a general tendency? What are the core reasons for that? The same happened 100 years ago with physics. People were completely lost. And in order to understand what was happening, you needed geniuses like Heisenberg, like many people that made contribution, Albert Einstein and others, although he was not a big believer in theory of quantum mechanics. But the reality is that in order to understand what is happening in physics of elementary particles, you have to change your logic. You have to change your common sense, the way you look at it. Because with the classical understanding and the logic, you can never understand. So you can never understand why on earth, when you try to fix a particle in a place, then you will never know where the particle will end up. It will end up somewhere with a specific probability. So scientists had to change their mentality, their logic, great scientists. And as a result of that, a new theory was created, quantum mechanics. And as a result of that, great achievements of physics were done. And as a result of that, we see the modern world with satellites flying, with communications, with computers, with the future new computers, with our artificial intelligence coming up, with the quantum computers taking over, and with this simple thing, which is called mobile phone. And mobile phones and communications worldwide, when any individuals can communicate with each other worldwide simultaneously anytime, has fundamentally changed the world. It has changed many values. It has changed the way we interact with each other. And it has also changed, for example, the basic principles that we live in. I think democracy is one of the best ways of running human society. There were different forms of democracy, be that in ancient Greece or in Europe, one of the first in Britain. But if you take even Britain some 50 years ago, democracy meant, electoral democracy meant that those who had to elect their MPs had to go to sign and to give their opinion at the electoral ballot, let's say once in 5 years, and they were meeting their MPs a couple of times per year. Now,
yes, please. Do you think that what Mr. Soros said, that now it's a war between democracies and authoritarianism, this is a war of the 21st century? Because you speak a lot about democracy. And I have to remind our readers and viewers that the President Sarkissian is also a real science man. That's why you know so many things about quantum physics, that probably you try to apply this in politics. I don't know if it fix, probably only the probability fix between quantum physics and politics.
No, it's much, much deeper than only the probability. I lived a life, when the first part of my life, I was theoretical physicist and teaching theory of relativity, relativistic astrophysics, some of the quantum physics, and so on. But later, I have many years of experience of public relations. So it's not just probability. If you are voting, you are not voting now once in 5 years. You are voting every day with this. I mean, in fact, every day you are voting 5 times a day, putting your opinion on Facebook. It has dramatically changed not only the way we run business, not only the way we run our affairs, not only during the COVID sitting home and ordering food to us. It has dramatically changed the way politics and international relations are run now. And of course, now you are not speaking about just citizens of specific states that can have their opinion said to their own government somehow through a paper article, but you are speaking about people, their opinion fly into the worldwide, into the web anytime. So you will know what's happening in Romania, in Australia, in New Zealand, simultaneously the same minute. So the world has become much more complex, and the role of individual has grown dramatically. And this is most probably that a lot of people are thinking that it's a new way of a conflict between authoritarian regimes and the democracy. In reality, it is much more deeper, because it is fundamentally changing our life, all aspects. Science, the way we run our business, the way we distribute food, the way we basically develop technology, the way healthcare is run and should be run. The beauty of this moment is that we are living at the crossroad of huge historic time. That means this is the time that the old classical world that we used to live is changing dramatically everywhere. And in the time of change, I think that we can remember the famous saying that comes from Far East, from China, saying that I think either you are blessed or you are cursed to live in interesting times. And these times are very interesting because they're the time of change. The world is changing every day and very, very fast. And I think if we will come back together, let's say in 10, 15, 20 years' time, we will not recognize our world. So it's a time of change. And because it's growing, the power of individuals grows. That means the power, not only individual, the power of small groups. I think small states are becoming more and more important. Now, with this sort of a scientific backward,
between those superpowers, Mr. President, among those superpowers like USA, now China is rising. Russia used to be a superpower and probably it still wants this status. Do you see the role for the small states? Because it looks like the whole world is putting together. EU is trying to become the United States of Europe, which probably will become sooner or later. I don't know, in some other parts of the world, they want to join together, like USA and Canada and even Mexico, from different points of view. So you see a better role and an important role of small states in this situation?
Yeah, definitely. I think you are right. If we look at the world today, United States are number one country in the world in military aspect. They are the most powerful military state worldwide. And I think that's not discussed, but that's the only state that can deploy army anywhere on the world and has huge military power. It has it is a huge military budget and so on and so forth. Of course, the others are trying to come closer, but for the moment, it's the United States. The only country that is sort of a challenging United States. It's a historic challenge by Russia, because Russia, as United States, has huge arsenal of nuclear power. Otherwise, on the other parts of the military spectrum, United States is not challenged. If you take another dimension of our life, which is economic dimension, definitely today we can see the world is also already sort of a bipolar, where you have the United States and we have China getting closer, or maybe will become equal and bigger on economic side. Others are catching up, and others could be countries like India, first of all, and then Brazil. Many other countries are trying to catch up. Of course, it's amazing if you take Europe as a one entity. It's a huge entity, and economically it can challenge both United States and China. But it's not there yet. I think you never take Europe as one unit. Now, there's a third dimension, and that third dimension, I would call it sort of a future power. And the future power is based on innovation, how good you are running your country, your management skills, and so on and so forth. And if I take today the best 10 countries that are the best in e-government, okay?
Yes.
You will find countries, European countries, that are number one, number two, number three. You will not find big states. If you take as a platform of innovation, the states that are running innovation, the first 10 states in the world include only United States and UK. All the others, they start from Singapore, Sweden, Ireland, Switzerland, and so on and so forth. All the others are small states. I think if you take the management, the quality of management of a state, I mean, I'm not speaking about my own observation. These are observations done by international institutions, Big Four or Bloomberg and others. I think, again, the small states are much better run than the big states. Per capita, if you take per capita, I think per capita, the richest countries on the world are not the big states. per capita, the richest countries are like Luxembourg, like Switzerland, like Ireland, like Singapore, like Qatar or Abu Dhabi.
Mr. President, don't you think that those countries had a very intelligent policies, and as a matter of fact, they take profit from the very big countries, from the superpowers? For instance, Ireland, that you mentioned in your book as an example of small state, very successful, has a very good policy and is hosting the most important e-tech companies from the United States. Switzerland had many years a very special policy concerning the money, the bank's accounts. Estonia, of course, you're mentioning is, as you say, e-government. It's the most digitalized countries in the EU, but still it's a small country and things are going very smooth there. They have a very good policy, but still they are good because they can rely on Germany, on France, on Britain, on United States, so also on the big countries.
Well, I think that's a philosophical question. The big countries also rely on big countries. But where would be United States without China and the other way around? I think everybody relies on each other.
That's a very good question that probably it has to be asked both in Washington and Beijing.
Yeah, I think that's the new world, and the beauty of this new world, and I call this quantum world, because the basis of our future achievements are related or connected to technology and technological advances. The advances of countries like China are connected also with the huge technological success they had, with the support of American know-how. American big companies moving to China because the workforce was cheap and basically taking with them huge technologies. So from that point of view, and that's why the future dimension, the small states look much more attractive. And the future is artificial intelligence. The future is quantum computing. And the future is new types of biological advances. The future is movement from sick care that we have worldwide when the system is basically waiting until you are sick and then it starts trying to cure you, to healthcare. But that can be achieved only if we will apply artificial intelligence, quantum computing to biological research. And then probably people will start living much longer, much more healthier. So everything is connected to technology. And amazingly, small states are ahead of many big states. You go to Singapore, the quality of National University of Singapore, that university is one of the best universities in the world. And they attract now Nobel Prize winners from worldwide, including United States. You go to a country like Emirates. In the world, there's only one university on artificial intelligence. That's in Masdar city, and it's called Mohammed bin Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence. You spoke about Switzerland. Yes, indeed, Switzerland was a financial center, but finances more and more are becoming digital. But Switzerland was a home also for international cooperation, development, or mediation. Look what's happening in the case of Gaza now. That sort of a role has taken on its shoulder another small country, and that small country is Qatar. So you brought the example of a fantastic example of Ireland, saying that Ireland is benefiting from United States and new technology. The United States are the leader in the world in there. But I would say the other way around as well, true, because if you look at the presidents of United States, probably around half of them are of Irish origin. They came from Ireland. So you can go through their biographies. So Ireland made a huge contribution or investment in future relations with the United States as a nation. Now they are benefiting because they have the right people, the right contacts, and they are smart. Being small is not enough. You have to be also smart. As you said, you have to be smart enough to create your banking sector that attracts the world, or you have to be smart enough to create your digital government, or you have to be smart enough to have a legislation or taxation model that people will be more interested in using Ireland as an investment base, and so on and so forth.
You saw that Ireland has problems with Brussels due to their very low taxations for the e-tech companies. That means that big groups of states, or even big states, they don't always like when small states, they want to make a paradise, fiscal paradise, or not especially a paradise, but giving more incentive to the companies they want to host on their territory. And in this direction, I would like to ask you, do you see those small states club having a voice also in influencing the world policies? Because this is one of the questions which was raised to Davos. I know you've been to Davos. I know you met 4 or 5 as Prime Minister of Armenia and President. You met 4 or 5, yes, 5 American presidents. So you really know what you're talking about. So the question was basically if those small states club that you mentioned in your book have the power to really change things, or they can profit of the big policies which are made by the big states.
Well, I do think it's never a one-way road. I think it goes both ways. First of all, I think it's not about just being small and benefiting because the big states are so successful and you benefit from their success. It doesn't work like that, and it will not work in the future world, for sure. Secondly, it's not about coming together and benefiting. In fact, it's very, very important that the small states represent themselves. I think the world is run, as you said, by big states. If you take the United Nations, the Security Council, there are members, there are huge states, and that states are in the permanent members of the Security Council that have the right for veto. Okay, you can be a small state in United Nations, but at the end of the day, the structure of the world politics is designed in a way that it is run by, at least on the level of United Nations, it's run by big states. I think the structure of European Union is a bit more democratic in the sense that more or less big and small states have more or less votes and consensus matters here and there.
But still, the European Union, it's basically run by the hardcore, which is called Germany and France.
Yeah, that's why. And then where are the small states, especially those who are smart, who are becoming very powerful? They are representing a lot of values worldwide. Where are they represented in this case? The question is nowhere, because then another organization is G20. We are speaking mainly about big states. Another one is G7, which was G8, now it's G7. But again, we are speaking of small, big states. So small states, they are not represented anywhere. Well, I'm exaggerating this. So my offer is that we should create an organization, international organization, that I would like to call S20, where the most successful and smart small states come together. And why I'm calling it as a club, because I don't think that we should create a sort of another big organization with a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of financing us going to bureaucrats. It should be a club where the leaders of those countries come together and have an exchange of methods, ideas, management skills of how to make a small countries successful, but also have a small organization that will represent those countries, first of all, the smart ones, and together with them, all the other small states that would love to become smart on the level of not only United Nations, but most specifically at the level of G20 and G7. Representative, as a sort of, we call him, the Secretary General of the S20, should go and participate at the G20 or G7, and basically, or at the meetings of BRICS, and basically representing ideas, interests of small states. Because with the new technology, I think the difference in scale will diminish. What is happening, even if you take the military aspect, more and more, the military power is not only connected with the nuclear power or a number of soldiers you have. It will be more and more connected how effective they are, how well managed. It will more and more connected with artificial intelligence, IT, quantum computing, drones, any mechanical things. And people are afraid of artificial intelligence, but I think they are not afraid of artificial intelligence. They're afraid how human natural intelligence would misuse the artificial intelligence. I mean, the nuclear energy, nuclear power is not a threat. What is a threat? That humans taking that technology and making instead of a nuclear power plant, making a bomb. The same will happen with artificial intelligence. But artificial intelligence, new technologies will bring big and small together. And in that context, I think there are also some structures in international politics that are sort of formally not state, but they act as small states. And I've written shortly about this book, but it's a big chapter in my second book that will be published called Quantum Politics. I think I mean here international big companies, especially in IT sector. I think companies like Google, Facebook, you name it, these companies, Microsoft, Apple, they have huge, tremendous world power. In this case, they don't need to have soldiers. Their influence on international politics to the right or to the left is tremendous.
You're perfectly right. Those companies are stronger than many states. But I want to stress something because probably it will be taken by also international press agencies. What you suggest is that the small states should make an organization so they have a voice which has to be listened in G20, in G7, among the United Nations. You also mentioned BRICS, that probably will not be acceptable for the Western world, but still those organizations. How do you see this organization, and who might join this organization? Because, for instance, you may say that France or Germany would like to join it as well.
France and Germany?
Yes, you cannot deny the access, because that will be, I mean...
They already have their organization called this as Giant 20, the big ones, G20.
I fully agree. But if small countries would like to make an organization, how they can make this organization? Which are the criteria? And the question was, if a big country like Germany would like to join, you would say, no, you're too big to join our club?
Yeah, I think I'm speaking about the principle of this idea. I'm not speaking about the parameters, who is big or small. Is small, I think, 5 million population or 10 or 15. Okay?
I see.
That's, for the moment, it doesn't make any sense to start going into nitty-gritty or the math or arithmetics of this, who is small, who is big. I think there can be a big countries, but big in their potential, but small in the impact of they have on international relations, world economy, or world politics. Or there can be tiny countries that have huge impact compared with relative impact, compared with their size on international politics, on economy, even on defense stories. So that's why I don't start immediately with S20, I start with the club. I think here the most important is to identify which small countries, and I think the identification is quite simple, is the small and smart countries, or the small and successful countries. There's another S in which I didn't put on as a cover of my book, just the club of small states. But in reality, the club should be members of the club should be the countries who are not only small states, but also are smart and successful. And with this criteria, it's not difficult to agree who is successful, who is not, who is smart, who is not. Smart is the one that has limited resources. I mean, limited number of resources. Limited, I mean also, you have oil, you have a lot of oil. And that oil maybe looks unlimited. But that's the one thing you have, because you live in the desert, you don't have educational system. So if you are using your oil, revenues from the oil, in order to develop the next generation, in order to go to the future, I mean, in order to build up your future, and the countries like Qatar, like Emirates are building a future, because they are spending a lot of money on building infrastructure, spending a lot of money on education and science. I mean, we saw how well Qatar was organized when they organized the World Cup for football, or United Arab Emirates has a space agency that is sending a satellite and the rover maybe to Mars. And this is not fiction. This is not only about money. It's know-how, it's educated people that they were educated indeed in big countries like United States and US.
Those small states club, you would see it like countries with a limited number of inhabitants, as you said, 5, 10, 15 millions, but also with a GDP income per capita above a certain limit, which means...
Again, I think we have to be careful not to go in definition of that. For the moment, I'm speaking about the concept of it. Of course, I have my ideas how to define that, but it will be premature for me to start speaking about definition, who can join that organization, who cannot. I think the reality should be in the future that everybody can be represented at that organization. But the top 20, I think G20 doesn't exclude the other states. If among G20 you have states that tomorrow they will lose many things, God forbid, economically collapse, and I think they will not continue being members of G20. They are there because of the size of their economy and success. The same will happen with smalls. But first of all, for me, it's important that we all worldwide, politicians, economists, everything, start realizing that small states, their role is growing, especially the role of smart, successful states. They have more and more impact on global economy. They have more and more impact on global politics. And tomorrow, they will become one important point I am emphasizing in many of my discussions is what is going to look like the future military political balance in the world. During the Cold War, where after the Second World War, when we had huge countries like United States and USSR running the show, I think the model that eventually prevailed and started working and worked quite well was based on the fact of that basically two sides could destroy each other, not only each other, but themselves as well and the whole world with the number of nuclear warheads they had. And that's why nobody dared to use a nuclear bomb. So there was a balance of military power in the form of military nuclear power, and that balance was keeping the world safe and stable. Now, in the future, even military power will be connected very heavily, not with the number of nuclear powerheads that you have, because already there are many countries that have nuclear power.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, but it will be connected how advanced technologically you are. And all the wars now, which are sort of a classical wars, be that the war in the Ukraine, be that the war that happened in Caucasus between Armenia and Azerbaijan and for Nagorno-Karabakh. A lot of analysts are saying Armenia lost the war, first of all, because Azerbaijan had advanced drone systems supplied by Turkey, and so on and so forth. So drone systems reaching each other on a very very far directions. Small states sending their drones to attack and bomb even bases of big states. It's unheard of from classical world, but it will become more and more common tomorrow.
You're
so
right.
That
the war has changed in Ukraine using the drones. It's completely changed.
And the future wars will be run by new drones, which are run not by humans, by artificial intelligence, that will make on the spot much quicker decision. And that drones could be already running with a hypersonic speed on the very low, for example, altitude or height, because human cannot control that sort of speed, but artificial intelligence can control that. So basically, the future wars could become wars of robots and drones in the future. And I'm sorry. And if people are afraid of artificial intelligence, that there will be a software that will take over the management of the world or a specific country or infrastructure or nuclear power plants, you don't need to be a big state to develop that sort of a tool.
That's very.
You don't need to be United States.
That's very interesting what you say. But you can do this not only for good purposes. You can do this as an evil state by taking over the nuclear plants and make them overheating, for instance, using the software.
I think the future power will be in the hands of people like Steve Jobs. And who said that Steve Jobs in the future will be born only in the United States? Who said the next revolutionary software that will take sort of a next huge step towards artificial intelligence will not be in Estonia or in Ireland or indeed in Singapore or in Israel or in Abu Dhabi? And basically, who said that the new technological development will not be in a very powerful US company or European company?
Normally,
because we are speaking about power of mind, power of technology. And this power of mind and technology will be the one that will have the chance of creating world balance. Because the balance will not be based only on the number of tanks and nuclear warheads you have. The balance will be based on how powerful you are technologically. And there, small states can be as powerful as big ones. So the big states, in order to push their interests worldwide, will need the support of small states. It's not that the old classic of the small states are run by them and they benefit. They will need the support of small, smart, advanced, successful countries. They have their own artificial intelligence, new technology, and they can balance the big ones.
You have described a completely new world. Very interesting. It will be many discussions probably about this view, very fresh view of the future world. When you say that the next Steve Jobs may be in Estonia or Israel or Ireland, normally
or
so
Romania,
far,
who said no?
Or in Vietnam, yes.
Not in Romania, but you have to start being smart today, investing in new technology and education to have the next Steve Jobs born in Romania.
We have one, which Daniel Denesh, which a huge success. iPath is his company, value of $30 billion in New York Stock Exchange. But I don't want to talk about this now. It's about what you have told us a few seconds ago. Normally, those people need a lot of money for investments and very high tech. That's why so far they appeared in the big countries. What you say, it seems to me very true, that for software, you don't need a lot of technology to start with. A good computer to start with and access to computing capacities which are available more or less everywhere, it's enough to make an application which can change the world. And you say that those things can appear, why not, in North Korea, which might have a problem, might be a problem for all of us, for instance.
Indeed. That's why I think it's very important that we start looking at future challenges. I think if we are focused only on the historic challenges and historic ones and today's problem, we will miss tomorrow. And tomorrow is coming and developing itself very, very quickly. Yes, indeed, Steve Jobs was born and Bill Gates and others were born in the United States and they were successful. United States is the leader in the technological innovation, I mean, globally in size. That's true. And innovation always likes an environment. Why most of the startups are near Silicon Valley? Because not very far are the giants that are always will look for a new idea. They will finance new idea. The same Apple, the same Facebook, the same Google, they will look at that. But of course, all of the guys that we are speaking, like founders of the Facebook, Google, Apple, Microsoft, they started in nowhere with no money, but brilliant idea and approach.
That's
but
right.
They were lucky because they had the Silicon Valley, California, huge US industry nearby, so they grew very fast. Now, the new technology, the global technology, is equalizing many things. And we will see that startups, new ideas will be born worldwide. Why? Because Silicon Valley and the same Microsoft are becoming closer and closer to Bucharest, Yerevan, and to Singapore. You see, if there is a new idea, good idea somewhere in any country, the big giants will see that. The big industries, the big markets will be available for them because the globalization that has started in a form of simple trading of goods and then services is becoming a real globalization in the virtual world. And
That's
that
right.
will change not only economy, military. I'm coming back to our first discussion. That will change also global politics, the way we run global politics, because the role of individuals will grow, the role of technology will grow. I'm sure you know, you are seeing in your own life how to basically distinguish or see the difference between a truth and a fake truth.
Oh, it's the most important issue now in the press. Mr. President, thank you so much for this very interesting interview. With your permission, we'd like to continue this discussion in the future weeks. You open a window to us about the small states and the fact how the new technologies will actually change not only human life, but also politics and military and economic in the world, as a matter of fact. Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Thank you for the invitation. I enjoyed talking to you, and I'm happy I had my small contribution to Romanian friends. Thank you.
Your contribution is not small, but thank you so much. Stimați telespectatori, stimați cititori, a fost președintele Armen Sarkissian cu o viziune cu totul și cu totul nouă. Sunt convins că va trezi multe discuții în România vis-a-vis de utilizarea noilor tehnologii și de rolul statelor mici. Până la urmă, Steve Jobs, asta este o idee genială, Steve Jobs, viitorul Steve Jobs, poate să nu se nască în America, se poate naște la Erevan, la București, la Dublin, la Singapore și de acolo poate schimba lumea. Vă mulțumim foarte mult, rămâneți alături de emisiunile trustului nostru. Pe curând!